Amiga, do you ever feel caught between two worlds? You cherish your cultural background, but sometimes it clashes with the realities of raising a family in modern America. You might feel pressured to fulfill traditional expectations, yet you crave a life that allows you to be your true, authentic self. If you're a Latina mom nodding your head right now, I see you, and I get it. Balanced Motherhood is more than your average mommy coaching program. It's a supportive comunidad designed specifically for you. I understand the unique challenges you face navigating between generations and culturas while forging your own path as a mama. Stop feeling like you have to choose between your roots and your future. Balanced Motherhood empowers you to create a life that celebrates your heritage, embraces your motherhood journey, and prioritizes your own happiness. Spots are limited. Don't miss out on this opportunity to connect with a supportive community and create a more balanced life. Visit the link in the show notes to join the waitlist for the next Balanced Motherhood cohort. I can't wait to meet you. You're listening to the Viva la Mami podcast, a podcast about all things motherhood. I'm your host, Jessica Cuevas. I am a mother of one on a mission to redefine the meaning of motherhood as a first-generation, bilingual, and bicultural Latina mommy. Regardless if we feel like a failure from time to time, or if we succeeded with the little things in our motherhood journey, it is important to celebrate all of these experiences as madres. So, bring your cafecito as I invite you to be a part of this space and create raw and honest conversations about the exciting and challenging parts of being a mommy. Ahora, vámonos. Hola, hola, amiga. Today we are welcoming Isabel, or like many call her, as Isa Gonzalez-Smith. She is a mother, wife, educator, community organizer, and bilingual Latina born and raised in Chicago. In addition, she is the owner of La Luna Doula, a founding member of the Chicago Birth Workers of Color Collective, and founder of Chicago Latina Moms, which I'm a proud member of. In this interview, we talk about what a doula does and the benefits of having one. Isa provides an overview of what a doula does in their practice and how they can support you and your family's goals as it relates to pregnancy, childbirth, and your postpartum journey. Isa also shares what it takes to be a doula, and she practices traditional Mexican and ancestral methods with her clients. Isa was drawn to birth work after her first pregnancy when she had trouble finding a Spanish-speaking doula in Chicago and realized that resources and accessibility were an issue for many marginalized communities. She is passionate about social justice, empowering families as they grow, and making memories with her two adventurous sons. It was a pleasure to have Isa in this interview, and I am sure you are going to leave with so much wisdom after hearing our conversation. So here's my interview with Isa Gonzalez-Smith. Hola, hola, Isa. ¿Cómo estás?
Hi. Good. So excited to be here with you.
I am so excited for you to be here as well. It's an honor just because there's so much of you that resonates with me as we talk about identity and how we can kind of embrace our Latinidad, and specifically through having a doula. And so we're definitely going to talk about the benefits of having a doula. But first, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Where you live, where you grew up, what you identify, like your education background, and about your family.
Okay. So I'm Isa. I am first generation Mexican American born in Chicago. So I grew up in La Villita, which is a predominantly Mexican neighborhood here in Chicago. And I am a mom of two boys. Rafa is turning 8 very soon. And yeah, it's pretty wild. And my youngest, Emiliano, he is 5. And so they both, keep me on my toes. I have a master's in library and information science. So, information and making information accessible to people has always been really important to me. I am the founder of Chicago Latina Moms, which I founded while I was pregnant with my first son when I was 17 weeks pregnant with him. And it's like Chicago Latina Moms, it's like its own baby, like you learn and you grow and you just keep tumbling forward with it. So yeah, we are 8 years old. So it's been growing along with Rafa. And I'm also a birth worker under the name La Luna Doula. And I've been practicing since 2016, I believe. And, I would say like 90% of families that I have worked with are Latino families, and, probably like 97%, families of color. So it's always been really important to me to connect with my community and to grow alongside with them. And it's nice to be in community with so many people that I have been a doula for, that, either before I was their doula, they supported me in some way, or afterwards. So I always say, like, when we have our last session, it's like, this is not goodbye and the last time we're going to see each other. Now we get to be community, right? We like leave that relationship of, client, business, which is not my forte, and become more community and lean on each other and walk together.
Yeah, that is awesome. And something to let my listeners know that I used you as my doula for our little D, who is a little pandemic baby. So
yes.
A lot of the things that I really wanted, I wasn't able to, just because when he was born, there was like a big spike in the pandemic, and so we weren't sure, and so for your safety and for our safety, we just wanted to just utilize you virtually. I guess you were like my virtual doula. But I loved that approach, that even though we were in lockdown, even though we were limited in being with people in person, you still provided the education and the care, and you shared your wisdom and just like the support that we really needed throughout, the childbirth class process, but also even after. Like, I remember I reached out to you when I had breastfeeding issues. And so yeah, I just wanted to point that out, that it was just amazing, working with you, and I'll make sure to use you in the next one. But
it would be an honor.
Yeah, thank you. But I love how you mentioned how you've built community, comunidad with your clients. And so, so tell me, what really inspired you to become a doula?
So I had doulas for my pregnancy, and honestly, I would have been struggling even more if I didn't have that kind of support. So my pregnancy was awesome with Rafa. Like, I felt beautiful and strong. I was great mentally. Like, everything was magical, right? And he was born at 35 weeks. So that's where everything unexpected happened. And I always tell my families, like, there is no easy way to have a baby, whether it's, an epidural or unmedicated or a C-section. They all have their pros and their cons, their easier things and the bumps in the road. And same with, pregnancy, labor, birth, postpartum. There's going to be a bump somewhere, right? And so for me, in my first pregnancy, it was immediately after birth. I lived in our hospital for 19 days while Rafa recovered and gained the strength to be able to leave. But it was difficult. And then, the challenges still continued well after we went home. So I'm a first-time mom. I don't know what I'm doing. I was going to take a Lamaze class the day after Rafa was born. So it was just so new and such a struggle. And I had my doula was actually out of the country because Rafa came early. So I had her backup doula, and, it was just so hard to be in the NICU, to breastfeed, to figure out therapies afterwards. And just my doulas were so helpful and empowering, uplifting. And I felt protected as much as I could be. And at that time, I was also starting Chicago Latina Moms. So because I had such a difficult experience, and our friends and family knew, when they were experiencing something, a difficult labor or breastfeeding, or my friend is having a hard time breastfeeding, can you just go visit her? Because I know you had a hard time, but you did it. Like, can you go? So I kind of like, through community, was helping families and talking directly with moms. And I was like, I'm kind of already doing the work. I should go get trained to be a doula. And so it kind of felt really organic and natural for me to be in birth work.
Yeah, that's awesome. And where did you receive your training?
So the organization like doesn't exist anymore because it became something else with Dr. Shafia Monroe, but it was called ICTC. I honestly forget the acronym because it was so long ago and I have the worst memory. And so, yeah, that was in 2016. And then I've also taken trainings with Maite, with Panketsani to learn more because my doula training was very Afrocentric, and it was very important for me to get my birth work training from people of color. And so that was just what I could find and what my doulas actually trained in. So I was like, if it was good enough for you and you're amazing, like I'm gonna do that too. And so, you know, I was able to, and it's not required to supplement your education, but just like any of us, it's good to keep growing and learning. I was able to take more trainings that were tailored to more like ancestral teachings, right? Things that have been passed down forever from our ancestors, our elders, and just learning some things that were more Latino centric from different parts of Latino America.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so did you travel like on site?
Some of our teachers have been able to come to Chicago. So it kind of comes in waves. We have an amazing community of Latino and Black birth workers in Chicago. I know for sure, it took me forever to find my doula. Like I had to reach out to someone in DC who was able to point me to a doula in Chicago. So thankfully, 8 years later, it's much easier to find Latinx, Latina doula as well as a Black doula too. Thankfully, so we've got really amazing communities that have grown together now. So I have gone to Mexico to do like a week retreat, and that was like magical, and that was I think in 2019, so before the pandemic. And I would really like to go back to California, Mexico area, because there's a teacher there that I need to keep learning from.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's great that you are a lifelong learner. It seems like, you obtained your training, but you're growing more so. And I'm sure that part of that, it may be based on your beliefs and your values and kind of like where you get and connect with your clients as well, which is awesome.
Yeah. If I could just add a little bit to that, like my background is very academic.
Yeah.
And so like that's a lot of where my head is, but also I every birth I learned something new. And you know, even though I was not there with you, it was the pandemic, and I had to learn how to communicate, because I feel like if a birth worker isn't about the tools that they have, it's in their head and their hands and in their heart. Like those are our most important tools. So it's like, how can I translate and give those things to you? And so we learn from each other, and we learn from our children too. And I'd love to talk more about that too, and that goes back to our ancestral ways también, like just because someone is older than you or younger than you or more educated or has a more successful job or whatever, like no one has something in its entirety that the other person can't learn from. We all have something to teach. Yes. And we all have something that we can learn from.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And so I kind of asked you what really inspired you to become a doula, but for the listeners who are unsure what a doula is, can you tell us what doulas typically do?
Yes. So every doula is different, and there is a doula for every family. So there, if your religion is very important to you, and that is something that you need from your doula, there are doulas who that is like a focal point of their practice, like their philosophy, right? So, or if you need someone who can cook you a lot of meals for you, right? We all have like the basic foundational understandings, and then everybody has something on top of that. And so that's really important, that as people are looking for support, they understand that everyone is different, and it's just who you connect with, right? Mm-hmm. And a good doula will not take that personally, because they understand that you having that connection is important. So a doula can support you through pregnancy, in the labor room, at birth, and when you go home, postpartum. Mm-hmm. And that all depends on you. If you're like, I only want to take birth classes because I think I got it from there, that's fine. If you, I mean, for me, it's ideal when I can go through the whole journey with a family, because if I'm educating them, we've built that trust for when we're in the labor room, and I don't have to take time to explain to them why this or that. We trust each other, we understand each other. And I also get to learn what is important to them. And I can be their brain in the labor room, because usually the birthing person, the mom, is thinking with their body, and the spouse, the partner, the husband, they're thinking with their heart, right? They get very protective and they want to make sure that they're okay. And so there's very little room to use your intelligence, you know, and everybody, you know, has so much intelligence to give when they have the capacity to do that. And so if I can be with them during birth classes, I know what they know, they know what I know about them, and I can take those things that are important to them and be their brain in the room. And then when you go home, making sure that, you know, you are settled, that you have everything set up for your success to bond with your child. And so it just really depends on what you are ready for, right? And what you feel you could need. And, you know, honestly, even if you've had a baby, you know, 5 years ago, I still think having birth classes is a great refresher, and to put you in the right mind space, and getting help at home is just so crucial. Yeah. Another thing too is one thing that I really, really want to make sure your listeners know, because I think this is so important, especially as Latinas and people of color, that most of us think that when you have a baby, you know, go to a doctor. And so you actually assuming that your pregnancy is not considered high risk, and your doctor would tell you you are considered high risk. So like, you know, if someone has had a lot of miscarriages, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're like high risk, unless the pregnancy shows signs of risk, right? Or your health. So, you know, allow yourselves the space to get that answer. Do not assume if your pregnancy is high risk for them. So if your pregnancy is considered in normal risk, which the majority of pregnancies are, even though it can feel really hard and like you're struggling and suffering, you know, you're still considered normal risk. You actually have two options for having your baby, and that is with an OBGYN, which is what most of us assume. But you also could have the option, and I'm holding two hands up to illustrate that, you know, you have on one hand a doctor option, and on the other hand you have the option of midwifery. And the nice thing about midwifery is that it is very hands-off, low intervention. I have found midwives to be very creative problem solvers, that when there is an issue that shows up, they try to address it in as low intervention as possible before we kind of have to get aggressive about whatever the issue may be about you or your pregnancy. The nice thing is, you know, ojalá que todo esté bien and everything's fine, but if in any point in the pregnancy or the labor that changes, there is always an OBGYN immediately behind a midwife. So it's not like something, you know, really aggressive happened, or there was a dramatic change and things are a big problem, y estás con la midwife. No, you actually get kind of 2-in-1 when you go with a midwife. You get the benefit of a very hands-off, very holistic approach. And I don't mean that like with you know, herbs and stuff like that, although some of them do have that knowledge. I mean that they are really going to make sure you're as comfortable as possible. But if any of that changes, you also have the OBGYN that can step in and help, no matter where you are in pregnancy or in the delivery room. So that's really nice. I just want to make sure that your listeners know they have those options.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I went through an OBGYN in my first pregnancy, like in my first prenatal visit, and I was like, I don't think this is for me. Like, I just felt like they were doing decisions for me, even like in the 8th week, prenatal visit. And I'm like, I just can't imagine how it'll be like as I move forward and move along through my pregnancy. And so, and this is, I guess, something coming from privilege, because I have the resources, right?
Yes.
I have the education, if you will, to like kind of ask and seek help and support about like, whether if I should move forward into like staying with the OBGYN or, going into midwifery. And so, I'm speaking out of privilege, but I at least made that, kind of decision like, oh, I think I'm going to go with the midwife. And so for folks that are listening that perhaps feel limited or don't know where to start, like, what are some tips that you can share if they are kind of in that verge or just wanting to explore further to seek kind of like a midwife, so that they know that they can have like kind of like that autonomy, right? In their experience all the way through birth.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because yes, privilege has a lot to do with it. And I think that it is a privilege to know that doulas are an option, that midwifery is an option. And that's without navigating, being undocumented or only speaking Spanish. So there is a lot of barriers that pregnant people face. And so I think it's wonderful that you have a platform where people can get that education. There is a ton of podcasts that exist to get free information. I would really recommend checking Evidence-Based Birth as a website and as a podcast. They also have a YouTube channel that's just like free, high quality information. If you're in Chicago, you should also check out Chicago Volunteer Doulas. And, you could be referred from your healthcare provider, your doctor, or you can reach out to them and say, I really, really want a doula. There's just no way that I could afford a doula, and this just would really help me out. Definitely reach out to them. And if there's like a doula that you really connect with, and reaching out to them and be like, this is my circumstance. Like, you just never know. You never know what, if that doula can't like support you for whatever reason. Like we are all connected and we all help each other out. And like, so like how we have a mom who just got here from like last year. No, I'm sorry. It was 2 years ago. We had a mom who just made it to Chicago and was just reunited with her husband and son, who were detained. Like, they were all detained separately. And, amazingly, they made it to Chicago and were reunited, but she was also just about to have her baby. So like, I don't know how she got connected. She got connected with someone. And then like all of these like doulas, we all connected and, gave her support that we could to cover her. Right. So I think that getting that education, which thankfully is very freely accessible through YouTube, through podcasts, asking in your mommy groups, like, we all have learned something along our journey, right? So it's just like, leaning into those. And then also to understand that everybody works for you. Everybody. So, if you're in the hospital and you are limited to having to go with an OBGYN, like, and this is hard, but knowing that you can use your voice to ask questions. Why are we going with this? What are the risks if we do this or that? What happens if I say no? Just by asking questions. And that's a really big thing that doulas give families. We don't exist to make sure you have your birth a certain way. Like, I had a doctor once who, she hated doulas And she told the mom, like, oh, your doula just wants you to have a baby like natural. And it was funny because I was like massaging like the mom, like her back, and she was like on her hands and knees, and I was like, what the heck, like I didn't, you know,
Said it in front of you.
No, they were on the phone, they were talking on the phone, but because she was on her hands and knees, like, and I was like massaging the mom's back, she was on speakerphone, so I heard her say that, and I was like, you can say, you know, I'm like, I didn't even do anything. And the mom, because the mom was in early labor, and it was a very long early labor. And the mom she was like, my doula is not making me do anything. That is my choice. And I was like, yes, you know, like that my ultimate goal as a doula is to make sure that you understand you're in charge. So if I can't be your doula for you, desde que empieza tu pregnancy, that you're thinking like, I'm in charge. The hospital works for me. The doctor works for me. The midwife works for me. The doula works for me.
Yes.
You are in charge. And if you know how like you had that weird feeling in your gut, ¿no te pareció that in 8 weeks you're like, this doesn't feel good? You need to trust that, because that gut, that instinct is going to be like the heart of your decisions for the rest of your parenthood. Si algo no te parece bien, like there is something to be said there. And you cannot ignore that feeling from the moment you are going to the OBGYN or the midwife, right? So if you don't like something, or if you go home and you're like, wait, I don't understand why we're scheduling an induction. If you don't understand something, go back to them and say, can you just explain to me, like, why are we doing this? Just so I know, not to be confrontational, nada, but so that you feel that you are an active participant in this experience, not that something is happening to you, but that you are navigating it. Yes. You know, and there's going to be lots of unexpected things, but the more that you can prepare for and to try to understand will give you more space for the things that we can't expect, or for the things you could have never seen coming.
Right. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And this is very empowering as well, just so that you know that it's very empowering that you're sharing this to Latina mommies who aren't sure, right? I think that this will help them to sort of start and then figure out, okay, where can I go after this? Where can I go next? Especially if, you know, at the back of their minds, they're like, I don't think this is for me, or maybe I should seek a doula, or maybe go with midwives. You know, I think this is a really great place to start.
Can I also add too, if you don't feel comfortable, if you're just, you know, because we have to think of creative ways to navigate just the disempowering experience that we have for low-income families or undocumented families, any of the barriers. The things that they are not barriers. It is the system that creates those barriers for them. Having somebody with you, you know, if it's your sister, your neighbor that you're like this, you know, you're really tight with, someone from church, as long as you have someone with you, you know, if it gives you support, and it's like an unspoken thing, you have a witness in the room. So nobody can pull a fast one on you, because there is a witness in the room. It's not just you and the provider, right? So and that is just you pulling your community into you. So I you know, regardless of your status, your privilege, your, you know, socioeconomic level, anything like that, having somebody with you for this journey, like don't be afraid. And that's something we do as mothers, and I think as Latinas too, is that and I'm saying this because I do it, right? And if I say it out loud, hopefully I stop doing it también, ¿verdad? But to share with everybody, to not shut the world out when you're struggling. And it's super hard to do it, and I that is a big motivator for me. And when I share when I share with my families too, is to pull down like that wall and to be like, I'm going to tell you my story. Para que sabes that I'm not talking to you from like, oh, I'm better than you, or I'm wiser than you, or I'm smarter than you. No, I've struggled, and I'm still struggling. And the most important thing I've learned is you have to let people in, and that's super hard. But even if you let one person in, that can be the person that you need to keep
Right.
going.
Yeah. Yes, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is very helpful, especially for us Latina moms. I think that it's interesting, right? We build a household, we build comunidad, but oftentimes when it comes to the very personal things like pregnancy and childbirth, it's like we leave it up to like I don't know if we leave it up to like the gods or whatever, but it's almost like we need to solve it on our own.
Mhm.
But there is community, right? We cannot isolate
Yeah.
ourselves.
It's also breaking that generational thing,
Yes.
right? Where
Yes.
the women in our elders,
Mm-hmm.
people who did it before us, and like, you didn't have a doula, yo no tenía eso, right? And yo lo hice todo sola, and I didn't
Uh-huh.
get to, and like, it's almost kind of like the tone, like, I did it all myself and I came out fine, you came out fine.
Right,
It's like,
right.
yes, but it is our responsibility to go from fine to healthy, right? And so what more can we do to unlearn anything that was not
Mm-hmm.
healthy or traumatic, and to
Mm-hmm.
adopt, to heal, and to grow for our next generation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, you're so right. And I know that you touched a little bit of like just like misconceptions, but in your experience, especially working with potential clients or just like VAs in general, what are some of the main or common misconceptions that may deter people from having a doula? Like, or kind of like myths, even?
One of the big ones that I get is that people think that a midwife or a doula is for having your baby at home, or
Mm,
having your baby like all natural. I have air quotes,
mm,
because I think that natural is a baby coming out of your body, however way that is, right? And so, and like I said, there's no easy way to for that to happen. And so I would say those are the two big things. And certainly if you want to have your baby at home, there are midwives who will support you to have an at-home birth, and there are doulas who will be there for you at home. But that is absolutely like not the limit to what we do. I've been
mhm,
to epidurals. I've had, families who went unmedicated. I've been in an operating room for a C-section, which is much more beautiful than I thought it would be.
mm,
So I've been in birthing centers. I've been at, in people's homes. So, as a doula, I get to learn what is important to you as the birthing
mhm,
person, as the mom, as the family, like what is important to you. And let's prepare for that. But I'm also preparing you for it to go completely not the way you thought it would.
mm,
So we
mhm.
have to be open to, because that's parenthood, ¿verdad? Like where
Yeah.
you prepare and you work so hard for it to go this way, and then it
Mhm.
just veers completely the other way, and you're like, what the heck? Like, that came out of
Yeah.
left field, and that, so it's like, así es la vida. It's
Yeah.
true. And so how do we make ourselves nimble and flexible enough to handle that?
Mm,
Porque empieza desde ahorita, as in pregnancy, you practice that. You might be
mhm,
pregnant and you're like, I want to have I had a mom recently who was like, I want to have my baby at a birthing center, and I want a midwife and a doula. And everything changed. We had to do
mm,
it at a big hospital. Thankfully, I was there with her, but she just took it so gracefully. Of course, it sucked and it was hard
mhm.
and it was frustrating and it was sad, but she didn't get lost in that.
Mm,
We honored those grieving feelings, and we kept moving forward. And
mhm.
that's what being a parent is about. It's not going to be all,
Right.
rainbows and puppies and lollipops the
Right.
whole time. There are going
Right.
to be difficult moments many, many times in the journey
Right.
of parenthood. So being able to prepare for what we hope for, and but also being ready, and allowing someone to walk with us for the unexpected.
Yes. 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 Thank you for sharing that, especially as like when you're not implementing but just like adding this layer of modern parenting, right? And we're very influenced with the things that we see on social media and just like all of these images. Oftentimes I feel like we want to have that standard. We want to reach that standard. And whatever it looks like, you know, whether if it's like perfect pregnancy to like perfect birthing experience or like perfect, you know, mothering. And it's like, I don't know. I wish that those images were just like eliminated because I feel that oftentimes we have these high expectations about like all of these kind of experiences and you know waves of like parenting and motherhood, pero it's like okay, it doesn't go that way. And so I'm glad that at least for doulas, like what you all do is kind of like you have those conversations in advance with these families, verdad? Que okay, this is what you wish to do, but know that you may come to an experience que tal vez nunca lo esperabas, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciated when you were walking us through that my mindset when I was at the hospital, I'm like, well, I'm going to leave it up to, you know, to the universe. And yeah, like I was one of those moms that wanted, you know, a full unmedicated birth experience, but don't know, like my labor was just forever and I couldn't. And so my midwife was like, okay, well, these are the things that I recommend you to do. And I really appreciated her laying out all of those options,
Mm-hmm.
where then I ended up just like getting induced because I just didn't have any more energy anymore. And I've already had like 24 hours of labor. Like that was like, I think it was like pre-labor. And so yeah, I appreciate you saying that because yeah, like I think that's the power of having a doula, just kind of like training us in advance. And I really loved how you talked about how you are kind of like you help with the mind, verdad? And then the mom is more so like her body and the partners you like the heart. It's like a trinity effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love that description that you provided because I think that oftentimes again like a veces nos dejamos para hacer todo like solas and it's like no, we need to lean into our community.
It took me a few births, maybe a few more than I'm giving credit to, but it took me a lot of births to come to the realization that being a doula is hard. And that's because a doula has the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual stamina to navigate labor with you. Because like I said, we're like, oh, we want to go for an unmedicated labor. Okay, that's our goal. We did our education. We know what tools we need to lean on. We're going to do the work. We're in the right mindset. Y luego todo cambia.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to shift like that and adopt a new path, you need someone who's not going to be like, oh my God, we just did all that for nothing. And, you know, like it's so easy to get lost in the laboring room. It is so easy. Yes. And so for someone to be able to adapt very quickly and still be of presence of mind and physically and emotionally and not like freak out, or at least externally, you know, it's a lot of work. Yes. And I've been to labors that were only 4 hours long and ones that I don't even dare to say how long they were. My husband was not happy about those, you know. So it's like I treat myself like I'm about to have a baby too, because I don't want to be, you know, because like when your body is, even if you have an epidural, your body is doing so much work and you need somebody there with you. So it's like me and the partner or the support person in the room, we're a tag team. Tú descansas mientras yo estoy con ella and yo la cuido and I'm ready to jump. And oftentimes I'm sitting like this with a mom, like just sitting like this quietly with my hands like by my, you know, like by my chin and just watching them, because any little grimace or frown or the mouth kind of getting pressed, all of those are signs. And I don't want you to use energy by decirme, ay, ya me duele. I can already see it and anticipate it and feel it because I'm observing you so much. That's a lot of labor, you know, for lack of a better word. And, you know, that's what your doula should do, is be able, and also, you know, there are doulas who, you know, have their philosophy and I'm sure there are doulas who, you know, they think you should parent or birth in a certain way. And if that works for you, that's great. It's just not my philosophy. I come from an
Mm-hmm.
academic background, so I want you to know all of the information. And I like to believe that, because it is overwhelming, but I like to believe that I don't make it boring, and that I help make it a little more memorable, but also that you learn to trust me, your
Right.
support person, your healthcare provider, yourself, and your baby.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yes.
if something unexpected happens, a lot of us who haven't really mentally prepared for it think it's our fault. My body
Mm-hmm.
failed. I did something wrong. I didn't do, and so many times it's
Mm-hmm.
like, let's just reframe this. Perhaps your baby is trying to teach you something.
Mm-hmm.
Y tú para andar, oh, me, I
Mm-hmm.
failed. You're not open to receiving that from your child, because
Mm-hmm.
we can learn from our ancestors, our elders, each other, and children.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they're in the womb and algo pasa the way of course you plan for one thing, pero algo puede cambiar. And
Right.
so your baby might be trying to give you a life lesson,
Right.
and you have to be open to receive that. So when something like that happens, we're like, okay, baby, I don't know where we're going. I don't know what you're doing,
Yeah.
but we're in this together. Tú
Yeah.
dime qué hacer, right? And that's a totally different mindset in the same situation than, oh, my body failed. I should
Mm-hmm.
have done this, or I'm a failure, or whatever. It's a different
Mm-hmm.
mindset for the same situation. It's just about
Exactly.
being prepared for that.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. I love it.
I'm
Yeah. And just, oh, go ahead.
sorry. I do want to add. So
Yes.
again, yes, our priorities, right?
Right.
Where can we? But also know that the person who's going to show up for you should be, and likely will be, worth every dollar, because
Mm-hmm.
we also want to respect and honor what they give in labor too, right? And I'll
Yes.
tell you, like, we that's a hard lesson for so many of us doulas, because we're giving people, and we want to like help everybody, but
Right.
like I have two kids, like we have
Exactly.
4 therapies we have to pay, multiple therapies that we have to pay for in our household, right? So it's like,
Yes.
if it were up to me, of course I would be there for anybody and everybody, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, like, in order for me to continue to show up and be present
Mm-hmm.
for you, like, we have to also honor and respect the work that people put
Right.
into it. I mean, that's really hard for us as women,
Yes.
as Latinas, and
Yes.
people of color, right? So and if you need ideas for, like, I really want to doula, like, feel free to reach out to either of us, and like, we'll
Mm-hmm.
help you, like, wherever you are in the country, like problem solving, like, how can we help
Right.
you get what you need? Just you
Absolutely.
have to ask. Or not.
Right.
That's I think that's the toughest part.
Right. Exactly. And don't feel limited, because oftentimes we grow up, especially like as first gen folks, we have this like scarcity mindset que no
Yes.
vamos a poder. No,
Yeah.
esto es imposible.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you're so right. I think that there's help and support and comunidad out there that you can, you know, get a doula. And again, this is me speaking out of privilege, porque yo tengo 9 to 5, I have the
Yes.
the income and the resources. But like you even mentioned the Chicago volunteer doulas, like there can be some opportunities out there where you can get the support. So don't feel limited in your options, porque si hay ayuda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to shift a little bit as far as with kind of like your methodology. You did mention that, you have a focus in ancestral kind of methods through your practice. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is, especially when you're adding your Latinidad in it? And how do you support like a mommy or a mommy to be to embrace her heritage through your practice, especially for a Latina mom?
Mm-hmm. There's so many things. I know I'm gonna forget, but the
It's
first
okay.
thing that's coming to mind, I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it wasn't you, but I'm pretty sure it was you. We made a Spotify playlist for you to listen to while you were in labor, and it was like kind of like música azteca, like really,
Yes.
because like a lot of the drumming and like indigenous music like has like a
Yes,
rhythm
like a
that's very heartbeat
beat.
and very rhythmic, that you can kind of get into a trance of it when you need to. So like through music, a
Mm.
lot of the way that I approach pregnancy, birthing, and parenthood I've mentioned ahorita, like learning from everyone and being open to receiving and giving too. Because like, I've had the honor of interacting with so many moms and so many different moms that have different journeys. And today they might need a lot of help, but tomorrow they give help to someone else who needed it. So like to be like, today I need to ask for help to get out of a domestic violence situation because I am drowning and I need help. And a year later, they're paying it forward and helping another mom out because they were able to get out, right? And like for us to being open to this moment doesn't define who you are in your entirety, ¿verdad? Like, so there's so many, I don't know, it's probably not the right word, but like philosophically, like how I approach like this journey, but also, and that's what I mean, like the mind, right? Like the doula's gifts are our mind, our heart, in the way that we approach parenthood, in the sense that you are so vulnerable. You kind of literally are an open wound, right? That's why you bleed after you have a baby for about 2 weeks, because you're that wound where in your uterus where your placenta is and now detached is literally healing. So even though from the outside you might look great, te bañaste, you were able to put on your makeup and you look and feel and sound great, in your body you're doing so much work, and so like taking a pause and helping a family unlearn that mentality of like, como dices tú, like scarcity, like I can moverse, like you got to keep going. It's like, like giving moms like that space to pause and to practice desde entonces like self-care, because even though, you're working hard and trying to move forward, that can only take you so long. Right. So it's like, how do we prevent ourselves from running on fumes? And that really comes from being Latina and like seeing, the women, that I've grown up with and continue to see. Right. So it's like, how do we break that? Because we deserve rest and we deserve healing and we deserve to flourish también. Right. And then with our hands. So I've learned, so many things about the pelvic region, and I actually have fibromyalgia. So I have learned, and my source of chronic pain is like from my knees to my pelvis. So, I have learned more than I would love to know about, how much our pelvis has to go through, through this journey. And every day I'm learning something new from my body, and, learning the muscles, the ligaments, how all of that changes from pregnancy to birthing, like while you're having your baby, things that only happen in that time frame. And the long kind of like pulling together in the postpartum time, and just applying all those things of like sobadas and what kind of oils and hierbas to use for those things, to, help the body absorb hierbas through steam, even something as simple as using and you and I both cried, when you had to give me back that rebozo, because it meant so much to you during labor. But I mean, if you can get a rebozo, and I'm saying that as, from the Mexican background, but there's different words for it in many parts of the world. So usan like different terms or whatever, but like it's basically like a long scarf. It's usually very decorative or a very bright color, or it has nice patterns and it has like a fringe at the end. And you can use that during pregnancy, especially during labor, and while you recover and bond with your baby during postpartum. So help, I've had moms who like, I would tell them like, buy it. I think you did too, right? Like
I ended up buying one.
Yeah, it's like, buy a rebozo and use it throughout that whole journey. And then it's your child's. It's not even yours. Se lo regalas when they're a certain age, when they can appreciate it and be like, oh my gosh. And for them to use that for their children. Oh, that's beautiful, ¿verdad? So it's kind of allowing us to, no matter how connected or not you feel with your ancestral and, background, but allowing ourselves to come back to it.
Right. Exactly.
And that's better than not, ¿verdad? And to gain that back that we have lost, and being able to pass that down generationally. So yeah, just off the top of my head, I'm just thinking like my mind, my heart, my hands, like the ways that, just like all of those teachings and gifts that I've learned from all of my like teachers, and passing them on to families.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing that I want to say is that if it wasn't for you, Isa, like I wouldn't have been able to like embrace mi identidad through this like motherhood journey, because I never felt so like powerful about using a rebozo, like that comes from a fair trade business. I think it's called Indígena Mami or Sí,
Yeah, they
Indígena
make beautiful rebozos. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it's interesting because my midwife was like, "Oh yeah, we use rebosos." And it's like, okay, well, it's great that you're utilizing this practice, but for me that I didn't even know about, like I think it was mi bisabuela that did, but there were already two generations that didn't use these like methods, ¿verdad? I just felt very empowered to do that, because it's like I'm doing what my ancestors did. And I think if it wasn't for your education and wisdom that you provided to me, like I would have been oblivious, ¿verdad? Like I would have known about this. So thank you. I just wanted to say
Yeah,
that.
no, and it's amazing how something as so simple as a piece of fabric has so much history, and learning that history and applying it and connecting with it can just be so empowering. Not just for you, but for me to share that and to grow with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, thank you for all of this. And so this is just a lot of, I think, an educational moment for everyone here. And I hope that for those that are listening are getting a little bit of, what it's like, not just to be a doula, because you also provide, you shared your vulnerability with us. So thank you for that. Pero también to really understand what doulas do. So
yeah. For anyone that might still be like, wait, I still don't understand what a doula is. To sum it all up, the doula is the person that walks with you through the whole journey. Si tú quieres, like if you invite them into that, they're that person that doesn't leave the hospital room, right? The doctors and the nurses are coming in and out. The doula is there for you and stays there for you. They don't do any medical checks or anything like that. They are there for your mind and your heart and help you with those medical decisions.
Yes. Thank you. All right. So I have three final questions that I ask my viewees. So the first question is, what still surprises you about being a mommy?
Just that every day is new. Just when I'm like, I think I got a handle on this. I think I know like what to do next time this happens. And then it's just a whole new journey, like, your baby's only 1 year old. I'm at 7 and practically 8 and 5. And I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't end up, like just when you think you got it down, algo nuevo, comes up. So that ability for us to adapt and keep growing is a thing you're going to have, because just once I get that down, then I'm going to have preteen years, and then it's going to be teenage years, and then it's adulthood, and you're growing with someone. So that surprises me, that I'm just like, oh, okay, now I got a whole new life lesson to learn now.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And what is one tip of advice that you have for Latina mommies?
Put yourself first. I know that's going to shock a lot of people, because that's not what we're raised to believe. That's not what we experienced growing up. And that is not how we're supported as we're mothers. But it's so important. And my son has several disabilities. And he gave me that lesson. That's the life lesson he gave me. Because I was like, oh, I just give to him and take care of him. And I crashed hard, real hard, like really, really hard. And I, started going to therapy, started taking medicine. And, that is how I am able to be fully present, fierce mama bear for him, because that, special needs journey, that's like the first thing when I'm talking to a mom and they're like, I think we're going to get a diagnosis, the first thing I tell them is get a therapist. because you have to put yourself first. If you're not okay, the rest of your family is not going to be okay. You think they're okay because they're being fed and they're going to school and they're sleeping the right amount of hours. But if you don't have the capacity to be flexible for them, to be nimble with them, to be creative for them, to have so much patience for your children, then what kind of quality life can we give them? And I don't say that to shame anyone, because again, I've gone through it and still try to navigate that. And that's a practice. It's not something that just happens. It's algo que lo tienes que practicar cada día. Did I drink enough water? I love those like memes or like stickers that say like, drink your water, bitch. I'm like, yes. I love that, because it's like, am I hydrated enough? Did I stretch my body? You know, like it took me forever to go back for the third time to physical therapy. It took me years actually. But I was like, I have to do it because I'm crashing. Right. And I want to be able to keep physically playing with my kids. Right. If you want to, you know, have your business and have it be successful and not have it hurt your children, put yourself first so that you have enough capacity to give to your business and to your children. If you're a single parent and you're it, put yourself first so that you are giving what your child needs from you, because you are working double time. In any situation, we can apply it where we have to put ourselves first in order for us to truly give the fullest capacity we can give to our children, which is never going to be 100%, right? Like that's just the reality of it. Pero it's very important that we give our children everything we can for them to succeed. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is that if we practice it, if we're a living example of it for them.
Oh, I love this, Isa. Thank you so much for sharing that, because priorities is like us. And and I love how, you know, you mentioned how we can be fully present with our children, and I'm currently going through therapy myself, and it's interesting how there are some traumas from my childhood and my upbringing that even though I had a great childhood, tal vez mi mamá, because she was a working parent as well, it's like something was missing, right? And it is either from her or from us, that now I'm starting to see that as an adult. So in order to avoid the cycle, I think we just need to take care of ourselves.
So our parents did the best that they could. And it's not a way to say they were terrible parents, because that's like the first thing like my mom or dad would say, like, oh yeah, like we were horrible, you know. It's not about that. It's about being the most we can be for our kids. And that's a lot of work. It takes so much work to unlearn the unhealthy or traumatic things, and to heal that, and to learn and then put into practice. And if that stuff doesn't feel hard, you're not doing it right. Honestly. Because it is easier to lean into the stuff that we know that isn't healthy, because it is hard work. So if you're doing that hard work, kudos to you, mamita, because it is hard. And don't try to navigate that alone, because it just makes it harder. But by doing that work to heal and to grow, you're giving a gift for your child that is going to last generations. No nada más like their, you know, childhood, their life and the lives after them.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. All right. And final question. What is your meaning of motherhood?
Being a student. My children are my teachers. Like, I thought I knew it all. And then they came along. And it humbled me. And it continues to humble me that I don't know anything. And they give me, like, I thought I knew what love was. And then Rafa was born, and I was like, oh my God, you know, so there's just so much that I learn from them, or I learn because of them, that I feel like I'm just in a constant practice of igual, like learning, receiving, applying, pausing when they get frustrating, and being like, okay, you know, like, and like just stopping instead of reacting. And that's really hard. Really hard, ¿verdad? Like, I'm sure any parent can relate to that. And when you come out of that, it's like, oh, I didn't expect him to hug me after that. He looked like he was gonna like kick me in the stomach, but he like got teary-eyed and he hugged me. Like, you know, just things that surprise you, or that they say, like this weekend we were in a playground, and I like went down the slide with Rafa and Emiliano, and like one of them was like, looked like they were gonna cry, and I'm like, are you okay? And they're like, I'm just so happy. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like something like, oh, I went down the slide, you know, like we're having fun. But that's like, I was like, oh my God, I just experienced him having a core memory, you know, like where that se le va a quedar forever. So I think just learning to just live life, because and for and with your children, and it's super humbling. I just don't see it like I'm the boss. I tell them all the time, I'm like, I respect you. Just because you're a kid does not mean that I'm better than you. You're my baby and I'm your mommy, pero like, I respect you. But if you're not going to respect me back, then that makes me question, you know. And they're like, oh, no. Like, so we talk about respect all the time, not to say that they don't talk back or, you know, act a fool or whatever, but they understand, like, I respect them. And that's like a big thing too, as Latinos, we have been pulled away from that learning, that we have things to learn from children. No es que, you know, yo soy el papá, or yo soy la mamá, and you listen to me, you know. Like, if we're having those interactions a lot, like, there's maybe we need to listen in a different way. Maybe we need to pause in a different way, and learning the tools to stop and pause and breathe and think. Therapy, that's taking care of ourselves. To learn. One of the things I learned on very early in motherhood was different behaviors from children that trigger us. Like, so if you're, you know, it could be anything. If your kid is having a hard time learning, like doing potty, like, why does that trigger you? Or if your child is always asking, why does that trigger you, right? Like, ¿por qué te molesta eso? ¿De dónde viene eso? And that could tie into your childhood. And so identifying it, unlearning it, and healing it for your child.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. This is so meaningful and powerful. I'm pretty sure that many mommies out there will just want to know more about you. So where can people follow you?
Yes. So please, if you're in Chicago, like our page on Facebook. Just look up for Chicago Latina Moms, and you can join our Facebook group, Chicago Latina Moms, and join the group. Or if you know a mom that could benefit from community, please do that. And that's a great way to find and connect with me, because I'm always there. But you can also find me under the name La Luna Doula, like La Luna. And then Doula, Doula. So you can go to lalunadoula.com to find me.
Okay, great. And I'll make sure to share in the show notes. But Isa, thank you so much for being here. This was such a great educational experience, I'm sure, for many, and even myself. Like, I learned so much. It's like having my consultation all over again. But thank you so much. There's so much wisdom in you. And you know, we didn't touch on Chicago Latina Moms, which that could kind of be its own episode. But know that your contributions to our comunidad is just so meaningful and just like empowering. So you're just wonderful and you're awesome. That's all I want to say.
So are you. And I'm so excited to see, you know, this platform of yours, and I can't wait to watch it continue to grow. So felicidades for getting it out there, and take care of yourself so that you can keep doing it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Isa.
Okay, Mamita. Bye.
Adios. Thank you for tuning in to the Viva la Mami podcast. If you like this episode, make sure to leave a review and write what episode really resonated with you. If you really loved it, share it on social media or with an amiga. As always, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening. Make sure to follow me at Viva La Mami on Instagram or visit vivalamami.com. Please note the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be replaced by your healthcare provider nor taken as professional advice.